Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is 6-Path Weeb. Today, we continue our fanfic series with part 2 of What If Naruko Had a Power Even Greater Than the Sharingan? In this alternate universe, we explore a shift in the balance of power and how it changes everything we thought we knew about the Naruto world. Disclaimer. The content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's get started. Haruno Sakura vs Yamanaka Ino. Among the many exciting moments of the Chunin exams, one event stood out in a unique way: the match between Haruno Sakura and Yamanaka Ino. While most eyes were often on the more widely known rivalries, such as between Sasuke and Naruko, the tension between Sakura and Ino was rooted in years of personal growth and competitive friendship. Though their rivalry wasn't always at the center of attention, it carried genuine intensity. Back in their academy days, both kunoichi had often competed for Sasuke's attention, though their efforts rarely made an impression. Looking back, Naruko found those moments amusing. Though they were once frustrating, they now served as fond memories of simpler times. As the two stepped onto the arena floor, a quiet energy built between them. Their gazes locked, neither one willing to show hesitation. Hayate raised his hand and declared, "The third match, Haruno Sakura vs Yamanaka Ino, begin." Ino took a calm breath and shifted into a graceful fighting stance taught by her father, the dance of the moon. Her left arm extended with an open palm while her right followed in harmony, her footing stable, centering her body's balance for optimal strength. To many in the audience, it looked like a fluid, almost artistic martial art. However, a keen observer like Guy Sensei recognized it immediately. "She's been practicing the family taijutsu," Guy commented to Asuma. "This match could be quite a challenge for Sakura." Asuma nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. Ino had always been a source of determination within her team, inspiring even the more laid-back members to push themselves. Her personal goal? To prove her own strength, and show that she was capable of standing out as a kunoichi, regardless of who stood beside her. Up in the viewing area, Naruko leaned on the railing, quietly observing the match with interest. Sasuke stood nearby, arms folded as he watched with a calm demeanor. "Who do you think will win?" Naruko asked, a small smile tugging at her lips. Sasuke didn't respond, and Naruko chuckled softly. "You should have seen Sakura during her last fight, she's been improving fast. Did you see what she did to that Oto kunoichi? After that battle, she started carrying a new sword on her back. It's more than just a weapon. That's Tashikaze, a tool of incredible potential." Down below, Sakura reached for the hilt of the short sword Naruko had gifted her. As her hand tightened around it, she drew the blade with precision, the steel whispering from its sheath. She took a defensive stance, ready for anything. Kakashi glanced at Naruko with curiosity, then at Sakura. "You seem proud," he remarked. Naruko smiled brightly. "That's because she's using one of my proudest creations. Tashikaze, the severing wind, is more than a blade. I crafted it using a combination of sealing techniques. It can absorb chakra and convert it through a unique transformation seal, allowing the wielder to tap into the elemental styles in a way that's almost unheard of." Kakashi's eye widened at the explanation. It was a testament to Naruko's genius, her understanding of Fuinjutsu already rivaling that of legendary shinobi. The other Jonin looked on in surprise, and Kurenai couldn't help but feel a bit of worry for Ino. "Ino might be outmatched," she murmured to Asuma. Asuma folded his arms. "With that kind of support, Sakura's taken a big step forward." Back in the arena, Ino's tone turned serious. "Sakura, you should really consider stepping down. These matches aren't easy, and it's not worth the risk when you're facing opponents like Sasuke or that skilled shinobi from Suna." Sakura shook her head, her voice clear and determined. "If being a shinobi means giving up when things get tough, then I want no part of that. I've learned a lot recently, Ino. Especially from Naruko. She helped me realize how far behind I was, and how much I needed to grow." Sakura looked up toward the stands, her gaze briefly landing on her teammates. Sasuke's calm presence steadied her resolve, but it was Naruko's quiet confidence that truly fueled her strength. "I looked up to you for a long time, Ino," Sakura said. "But now, it's my turn to show you how much I've changed. I'll prove that I belong here." Sakura lifted Tashikaze and whispered gently to it, "Guide me." In a burst of movement, Sakura dashed forward, her sword gripped in a reverse hold, the blade aligned with her forearm. With a swift swing, she aimed a horizontal strike toward Ino, who reacted instantly, flipping back with a nimble somersault to land safely across the arena. Ino recentered herself and launched forward, channeling chakra through her feet to accelerate. She appeared before Sakura in a flash and landed a powerful palm strike that knocked Sakura backward. Using the momentum, Ino leapt into the air and performed a rapid series of hand signs. Saru, Tori, Uma, Tatsu. Monkey, bird, horse, dragon. She focused her chakra downward as she descended, aiming a strong aerial kick. Moonlight comet kick. Sakura rolled to the side just in time, avoiding the impact. The force of the landing cracked the surface beneath Ino, sending fragments scattering. Regaining her footing, Sakura concentrated chakra into her sword and called out a seal. Seal of water, release. From above, Naruko beamed. Let's see if you can handle it, Sakura. Even I couldn't master every seal in that blade. The battle continued with elegance, spirit, and determination, two kunoichi, both with something to prove, pushing each other to their very limits in a contest of skill, heart, and growth. As the command was given, Sakura swiftly swung the sword to her side. Water began to flow from the base of the short blade, rapidly spiraling outward. A dragon-shaped stream of water formed, swirling upward before crashing down toward the stone floor in front of Sakura. The force of the impact left a noticeable dent in the ground, and the swirling water continued its path with surprising intensity. Sakura stepped back instinctively, her eyes wide with surprise as the water dragon twisted around, causing a brief chaos in the arena. This is bad, Naruko murmured, watching as the summoned water dragon surged across the area. Stop, Sakura cried, trying to regain control. Ino leapt aside just in time as the watery form veered in her direction, momentarily burrowing into the floor. With Sakura still looking disoriented, Ino seized the opportunity. Focusing her chakra into her legs, she dashed toward Sakura with speed and precision. Holding two kunai, she spun and shouted. Getsushuzen. Moonstrike slash. Sakura, still trying to compose herself, was caught off guard by the attack and fell back, her arms and sides scratched by the strike. She winced from the sting but tightened her grip on her sword, Tashikaze, refusing to fall. Just as Ino was about to move in again, the ground beneath burst as the water dragon re-emerged. Sakura stood, still gripping her blade with both hands, her body trembling as she struggled to manage the overwhelming flow of chakra. It felt as if the sword was demanding more energy than she could provide. Her breaths grew heavy as she focused, fighting to steady herself. She glanced up at her teammates in the stands. Both Sasuke and Naruko gave her an encouraging nod. Naruko smiled with quiet confidence, silently cheering her on. A faint smile formed on Sakura's lips. She whispered, "Seek and you shall find." In that moment, the water dragon dissolved into mist. Sakura had found the key, she had to stop the chakra flow. Once the connection ceased, the sword transformed into a refined, straight, light blue Nadachi. A spiraling dark blue dragon now coiled along its handle, its head resting at the base of the blade. Sworyu, ni no kata. Water dragon, second form. With a determined cry, Sakura slashed downward, sending a crescent-shaped water projectile toward Ino. Ino barely dodged as the powerful wave sliced cleanly through a stone wall below the bleachers. Up in the stands, Naruko leaned forward, her expression turning serious. "This is getting interesting," she said. "What do you mean?" Kakashi asked, curious. "I never expected Tashikaze to have this kind of elemental potential," Naruko replied thoughtfully. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "What kind of potential?" "Well," Naruko explained, "I mentioned before that the wielder of Tashikaze can manipulate all 5 elemental chakra natures. But what I didn't anticipate was the ability to blend them together to create entirely new techniques. Jiraiya-sensei and I developed the Henkei Fun, but I never got to test it fully because my water control wasn't great. Sakura, however, has the best control among us." Down in the arena, the temperature dropped slightly as water in the air began to crystallize. Sparkles danced around Sakura as she raised her sword and called out. "Tsura no Mai, she. Dance of the Icicles, initial." A row of shimmering icicles formed along the ground in front of her, racing toward Ino. With wide eyes, Ino dodged quickly, leaping over the icy trail. Meanwhile, in the VIP room, Hiruzen watched the scene unfold with a thoughtful expression. "Incredible. This seal doesn't just grant elemental mastery, it allows combinations of different elements. Naruko truly created something remarkable," he said, watching the sword's evolving abilities with admiration. The arena continued to echo with the sounds of battle. The path of icicles grew unstable and shattered just as Sakura shouted. Ban! Final! The remaining icicles launched upward in unison toward Ino. Though she dodged most of them, one grazed her shoulder. Ino stumbled, then quickly pulled the shard free and tossed it aside, wincing slightly. Sakura advanced with a powerful downward slash, but Ino dodged just in time as more icicles burst from the ground where she had been. Panting, Sakura turned toward Ino. The two locked eyes. That was close, Ino said, catching her breath. You nearly had me. But I didn't, Sakura replied with a faint smile, so you're still here. Frustrated, Ino pointed at her and said, what kind of response is that? You've been spending too much time with Naruko. Up in the stands, Naruko's eye twitched as she leaned over the railing, shouting down, excuse me? I am not responsible for everything she says. Ino pointed upward. Says the person who once launched a ninja through a wall. Hey, I apologized. Naruko called back. And your hair still looks like you brushed it with a fork this morning. That's it, Naruko. When this is over, we're having a serious talk about your attitude, Ino shouted back. Bring it on. Just don't cry if I beat you at a haircare contest. Naruko retorted with a grin. The rest of the spectators either sweat dropped or tried to ignore the ongoing banter. Lee clutched his ears dramatically. Oh, such unyouthful language. Guy-sensei. We must atone by running around Konoha 50 times. If we fail, 400 squats will be our punishment. Neji and Tenten glanced at Lee, then at Naruko, both clearly unimpressed. Finally, Sakura, fed up with the exchange, shouted at Naruko, Naruko. If you don't let me finish this match in peace, I swear I'll make sure you regret interrupting me again. Naruko let out a nervous chuckle and quietly took her seat, deciding not to push her luck any further. Sasuke let out a quiet chuckle. Naruko, unimpressed, shot him a look and said, quiet, featherhead. Sakura groaned as she adjusted her stance, holding the Nadachi with confident precision. Hard to believe she's considered the top student of our class sometimes. You'd think she'd act more like it. Ino grinned, turning away from her fellow blonde. That's classic Naruko, though. She's been talking big ever since we were little. Then, with a playful twirl, Ino tossed a handful of flower petals into the air. Sakura tilted her head, curious. What are you planning to do with those? Ino grinned even wider. Watch closely. Ninja art, 1,000 cherry blossoms. The petals shimmered and began to swirl, flowing gracefully around her like a protective dance. As they multiplied and danced around Ino, Sakura watched in awe before snapping her focus back to their match. Sakura's sword began to shimmer with icy energy. Mist gathered at the blade's edge, and a massive icicle started to take shape over it. Hyurin-maru. She called out, aiming the blade forward. A dragon-shaped surge of ice coiled into the air, roaring silently as it charged toward the swirling petals. The petals responded in kind, moving swiftly like a defensive storm. In the stands, Kakashi observed, intrigued. I have to wonder. How is Sakura using such advanced techniques without having learned them traditionally? Naruko smiled proudly. Well, besides the seals I placed on the hilt, there are also ones at the base. I call them Jinki no Kami, seals that carry chakra knowledge. They're designed to flow chakra through the user's muscles and nerves, triggering learned movements like a kind of memory. Kakashi looked genuinely impressed. You've really thought this through. Naruko nodded, a bit smug. Yup. I even installed a safety seal in the guard, in case someone else uses it. I can remotely deactivate the whole system. Sasuke gave her a sidelong glance. You're getting a bit full of yourself. Isn't using artificial chakra like that risky? Naruko shrugged. Well, yeah, a little. The technique is meant for people with high chakra reserves. If the chakra runs out, the weapon draws energy from the body instead. Kakashi's visible eye widened. So it would begin using the person's stamina and physical energy to function? Naruko chuckled awkwardly. Basically. Which is why Sakura needs to deactivate it before that happens. Back in the arena, the ice dragon and cherry blossom storm collided spectacularly. Ice met petal with incredible force, pushing back and forth. Some petals began to freeze while the dragon chipped apart from their sharp edges. Seeing the tide turn, Ino raised her hand. The petals responded instantly, slamming into the icy dragon. Both jutsu shattered in a burst of frost and color. The two girls, now tired and determined, rushed at each other. Sakura had let go of Tashikaze, and as both kunoichi shouted each other's names, they threw their fists forward. Sakura. Ino. Their fists met in a powerful clash, and a cloud of smoke enveloped the area. Everyone leaned forward, holding their breath. When the smoke cleared, both girls lay unconscious on the ground. Hayate quickly checked them and raised his hand. The match between Haruno Sakura and Yamanaka Ino ends in a draw. Naruko blinked in surprise. Honestly didn't expect her to win. But I really didn't think it would end in a tie either. Kurenai looked over, intrigued. Sakura had the advantage, though. Her techniques were incredible. How did she pull that off? Naruko held up a finger like a teacher. Someone who can't manage their power already loses from the start. She continued, Sakura was able to use Tashikaze's advanced modes, but the energy control required was massive. I was impressed she managed it as well as she did. And Ino? That taijutsu technique, that wasn't something we've seen from her family before. Kakashi and Asuma picked up their students with care. Asuma muttered, your team really is something else. Kakashi smiled beneath his mask. They're a handful. But they always deliver. Back on the display board, names began to randomize again. Sasuke turned to Naruko. What's Guren Zanpaku's ability? Naruko gave him a cryptic smile. You'll find out soon. It's a specialized weapon, not just anyone can use it. The next match was announced, Sabaku no Tamari vs Tenten. Both kunoichi entered the arena with focused expressions. Tenten warmed up, stretching before pulling out 2 scrolls. After seeing that last fight, I'm pumped. She grinned. Tamari nodded in agreement, intrigued by the new challenge. Tenten tossed a scroll into the air, releasing a bladed chain that darted toward Tamari. With grace, Tamari swatted it away. Tenten twisted the chain, trying to bind Tamari, then pulled out a katana mid-air and slashed, only for Tamari to vanish in a swirl of wind. From the stands, Naruko observed, she used wind to mimic a solid form. Then substituted it at the last second. That's clever. Sasuke nodded. It's a combination move. She made it seem like a normal substitution, but she shaped the wind with chakra. Lee chimed in, amazed. That kind of chakra control. It's beyond Janon level. Tamari reappeared near the giant statue, opening her fan. You're talented with weapons. But they won't help you against me. Tenten smirked. We'll see about that. She opened another scroll, summoning a cloud of smoke and reappearing clad in a fully equipped combat suit, multiple swords, kunai strapped with tags, mechanical arm braces, and a mask hiding her mouth. She called the transformation Art of War. From the stands, Naruko called out, Tenten. That's the last time I tell you Uzumaki family stories. Tenten shot back, as a retainer of the Uzumaki clan, I inherited those stories and our smithing techniques. So hush. Sasuke chuckled again, and Naruko pouted. Tenten launched into action with precision, slashing and firing kunai from her arm launcher. Tamari countered with bursts of wind, her fan spinning. The 2 kunoichi clashed midfield, Tenten's claws and blades against Tamari's gusts. A kunai exploded midair as it hit a wall of wind, and Tenten advanced with twin swords in hand. A quick roll and upward slash caught Tamari by surprise, grazing her clothing. In the stands, Kakashi shouted, Go Tenten. Naruko sweat dropped. Sensei, really? Shikamaru muttered, why does this feel so intense all of a sudden? Only to be scolded by Ino for getting distracted. Back in the arena, the match heated up as both kunoichi pushed their limits, and the audience watched in awe as the tournament continued to unfold. So your wind-based technique only works effectively when you have enough time to prepare it, Tenten commented calmly. Even though you're skilled at long-range combat, the delay between your strikes gives me an opening to close in. The gap may seem small, but it's enough. Before I begin, let me tell you something. She motioned toward Naruko, who remained composed despite the remark. That blonde kunoichi who designed the Tashikaze. Tenten gestured with a nod toward Naruko. She made the prototype. It was a solid concept, but she found it difficult to manage. At the time, she hadn't discovered a way to apply a sealing formula that could harmonize all 5 elemental chakra natures into a single weapon. So instead, she focused on a seal designed to channel individual elements efficiently. Naruko's incredibly detailed with her work. Still, I didn't want the prototype to go unused, so I asked if I could have it. That was about 2 years ago. With a flick of her wrist, Tenten flipped the tanto in her left hand. Each of these blades holds 1 elemental property. Unlike the refined version of Tashikaze, these can only manage 1 element per weapon. She held the tanto in reverse grip and plunged it into the ground. Instantly, the terrain quaked. Tamari sprang into action, quickly opening her giant fan and using it to glide over the forming fissure. As Tenten vaulted into the air, she sheathed the tanto and drew her wakizashi. Water vapor condensed and gathered into a swirling orb at the blade's tip. She then swung her sword with a shout. Suten, Mishi Bai. Water style, water snake. A concentrated stream of water twisted through the air toward Tamari, who narrowly avoided it by shifting her fan to the side. Once she landed, she reloaded a kunai into her launcher and fired it at Tamari, who darted away, scaling the wall behind her. A moment later, a soft explosion rumbled behind her, but she had already leapt clear. Tamari assessed the flow of battle. From what she'd observed, and what Tenten had explained, the weapons were prototypes. That meant they had limitations. She had deduced the flaw. Predictability. Tenten had used an earth-type tanto, followed by a water-type wakizashi. If the pattern continued logically, then the next sword would be fire-aligned. The rest followed suit, wind, then lightning. Tamari smirked, her deduction complete. As she approached mid-air, she swung her fan forward, blocking Tenten's strike and catching sight of her opponent reaching for the next blade. Tamari's eyes widened. That was the fire-type sword. Without hesitation, Tamari grabbed Tenten's wrist to prevent her from drawing the next weapon. Then, releasing her fan into the air, she delivered a powerful kick, swinging the fan open mid-spin. Tenten's eyes widened in surprise as the fan rotated with increasing speed. Shunshin no jutsu? She gasped. From behind, she heard the soft tap of sandals. She twisted mid-air to see Tamari behind her, fan fully open, already mid-swing. From the viewing rails, Naruko said, calm and certain. It's over. Tenten has lost. A tremendous wave of wind swirled around Tenten, disarming her and causing her to lose consciousness. Tamari, breathing heavily, steadied herself. She hadn't expected such strong opposition from the Leaf Village's young shinobi. If they were going to be up against opponents like this in the future, the journey ahead would be anything but easy. With skilled ninja like the last Uchiha, and the promising blonde kunoichi trained by the masked Jounin, Tamari began to seriously question what lay ahead. Ninja art, Kamaitachi, Tamari whispered between breaths as the wind calmed around her. Tenten fell to the ground unconscious, but otherwise unharmed. Winner of the fourth match, Tamari of the Hidden Sand. Medics gently moved Tenten onto a stretcher and carried her off. Tamari slowly returned to the observation area, clearly fatigued. Baki, her mentor, watched anxiously. Nearly all the matches had a common thread, they were somehow connected to that kunoichi, Naruko Uzumaki. He could sense it now, an unease that wouldn't fade. The Uzumaki legacy was no ordinary one. It had been whispered that their power rivaled, even surpassed, the famous Uchiha. Baki realized this could change the course of their plans significantly. The Kazekage needed to hear of this immediately. Any strategy moving forward would need serious adjustments. The display board buzzed to life again, shuffling names for the next match. Naruko observed the remaining competitors thoughtfully. One of Kabuto's teammates, the one with the dark glasses, still waited. Neji stood against the wall, arms crossed and eyes closed in calm concentration. Something about his expression irked Naruko slightly. Then she saw Sasuke, he stood the same way. Now it made sense. That's what annoyed her. They were too similar. Naruko then noticed Kuji and Hinata, both visibly nervous. She understood their unease. The next battles would not be easy, and doubts crept into even the strongest hearts. The board stopped. All eyes turned to the next match. Akedo Yoroi vs Uchiha Sasuke. Despite her fatigue, Sakura perked up at the announcement. Alongside her, Ino shouted cheerfully. Go, Sasuke-kun. You've got this. Naruko, Shikamaru, and Kuji all winced, they were standing too close to the high-pitched cheering. Kakashi, oddly prepared, wore earplugs and calmly read his novel, while Asuma simply covered his ears with his hands. Normally, Naruko would have ignored it. Sakura and Ino were well known for their admiration of Sasuke, and she didn't particularly mind. But the constant comparisons? That was a different story. People always seemed to put her and Sasuke side by side in conversation, treating Sasuke as someone destined for greatness while Naruko was underestimated, even mocked. But that was then. Naruko had recently shown her strength in a battle of her own, turning assumptions upside down. The same people who doubted her now looked at her with surprise and new respect. And as long as no one disrupted her focus, she didn't let it bother her. Yet sometimes, enough was enough. When the shouting behind her reached its peak, Naruko finally turned and said with a loud sigh. "Please keep it down." The two girls responded by lightly shoving her out of the way in their enthusiasm, sending Naruko stumbling backward into the railing. A few pebbles tumbled down as she stood up, rubbing her forehead. Yikes. They could be intense. Kiba nudged Naruko playfully in the ribs and said with a grin. "So, Naruko, how's your day going?" Naruko shot him a tired glance and muttered. "Let's just get through this." With that, Hayate signaled the beginning of the match. Power is an insatiable desire. It moves forward relentlessly and resists all restraint. Since the dawn of civilization, it has influenced history. Power is often seen as the ultimate measure of capability, and those who possess it are elevated in the eyes of others. Those without it must strive, or risk being left behind. Without purpose or growth, one's existence can feel empty. This belief had been deeply ingrained in young Sasuke ever since he was 6 years old. To him, being powerless meant being invisible, but strength brought clarity and purpose. He believed firmly in the principle that growth is necessary for survival. Sasuke also held firmly to the idea of fair consequence. If one acted unjustly, they must be held accountable. To him, justice and personal growth were closely linked. He had made a solemn promise: he would rise above his past and seek those responsible for the hardships he faced, pursuing clarity and strength along the way. Descending the steps with quiet focus, Uchiha Sasuke prepared for his next match. His opponent, Akedo Yoroi, stood across the arena. In Sasuke's hand was Guren Zanpaku, a distinctive scarlet-bladed weapon. As the proctor gave the signal to begin, the match commenced. In an instant, Sasuke closed the distance. He saw this as an opportunity, another step toward achieving his goal. From the observation deck above, Naruko watched attentively. She raised an eyebrow at Sasuke's speed. "He's really giving it everything," she said to herself. Kiba, hearing her, looked over. "Why the serious face, Naruko?" She didn't answer, her focus fully on the battle below. Sasuke swung his weapon in a swift arc. Yoroi leapt back, narrowly avoiding the strike. His shirt was sliced by the sharp curve of the blade. He frowned. His strategy relied on being close, and Sasuke was making that difficult. Without losing momentum, Sasuke launched upward and descended like a comet, swinging Guren Zanpaku downward. Yoroi blocked with a kunai, the clash creating sparks as steel met steel. Yoroi tried to counter, reaching out to grab Sasuke, but Sasuke twisted midair, extending the chain attached to the weapon and entangling Yoroi's arm. Using the motion, Sasuke flipped and brought Yoroi to the ground in a smooth toss. Sasuke attempted a follow-up strike, but Yoroi caught his leg. Sasuke reacted swiftly, forming hand signs. Kaden, Hausuka no Jutsu. A burst of small fireballs flew toward Yoroi, but when the flames cleared, a substitution log lay in his place. From above, Naruko crossed her arms. "And they say I don't think things through with my techniques." Ino's voice chimed from across the balcony. "That's because you don't." Naruko replied casually, "Well, at least my last opponent walked away fine. Sasuke's not holding anything back." She pointed to Yoroi, who had tried to sneak around to the rooftop. "You're not exactly subtle," she commented flatly. "Even Sasuke could see you, your shadow gave you away." Just then, Sasuke appeared in front of Yoroi, eyes glowing with the power of his Sharingan. "Not exactly stealthy," Sasuke said as he launched a powerful kick to Yoroi's jaw. Yoroi staggered, landing back on the arena floor. He quickly regained his balance, just as Sasuke deployed the blade of Guren Zanpaku downward, its chain following with precision. Yoroi looked up again, only to see Sasuke's foot closing in fast. He raised his arms to defend, but Sasuke broke through the guard. Sasuke followed with a quick spin kick and a solid strike to the side. Then, a punch to Yoroi's center, followed by another to his cheek. The energy around Guren Zanpaku pulsed as Sasuke grasped the weapon's base, spinning the blade rapidly. The crimson light began to glow brighter, signaling a more advanced maneuver. Yoroi immediately understood the danger. He moved to attack before the weapon could be thrown. Sasuke launched the spinning blade, which cut through the air toward Yoroi, who dodged just in time. But the weapon changed direction, homing back in on him. Naruko nodded slightly, recognizing the signature move. "That's Guren Zanpaku's tracing ability," she murmured. "He calls it Jiseki. Not bad for his first custom weapon." To her, the weapon had potential, but it didn't suit her style. Still, she respected the thought behind its design, meant for predicting and countering, rather than overwhelming offense. The glowing red blade moved like a streak of light, following Yoroi's every step. While he avoided most of the strikes, a few grazed his shoulders. One came close to his face, leaving a small cut along his cheek. As Yoroi focused on evading the blade, Sasuke reappeared beside him, landing another forceful punch. Yoroi stumbled but held his ground. He wasn't ready to give up. He extended his arm and managed to grab the back of Sasuke's shirt. In that moment, Guren Zanpaku struck, catching Yoroi's arm. Despite the hit, he pressed forward, attempting to absorb Sasuke's chakra through contact. Sasuke felt his energy being drained. He looked to the observation deck. Naruko stood with her arms resting on the railing, her expression unreadable. He looked to the side and saw Gaara, arms crossed, face calm and detached. The look in Gaara's eyes seemed to say, "Is this all you are capable of?" And in that moment, Sasuke realized, this wasn't just about winning. It was about proving, to himself more than anyone, that he was capable of rising above. An image of her brother lingered behind the Sanjinchuriki as Sasuke clenched his fists in frustration. No one had the right to look down on him. He was an Uchiha, part of a legacy of elite shinobi, trained and disciplined to the core. His Sharingan eyes turned once more toward Yoroi with focused determination. The third Tomoe appeared in both his eyes, marking a new level of mastery. Sasuke grabbed Yoroi's arm with his left hand, recalling a technique his brother once used. "Before these eyes, your techniques are meaningless," he said calmly. Using only his left hand, Sasuke skillfully turned Yoroi's arm, causing the other boy to lose balance. Now firmly grounded, Sasuke landed a powerful but controlled knee strike to Yoroi's midsection. Yoroi released his grip, and Sasuke swiftly retrieved his weapon, Guren Zanpaku, from Yoroi's side. With a careful move, he delivered a gentle but forceful push to Yoroi's chest with his foot, creating some space. Now holding the hilt of Guren Zanpaku with both hands, Sasuke began to unlock its hidden potential. He remembered Naruko's earlier words as she walked down the stairs to the arena. Want to understand Guren Zanpaku's power? Solve the puzzle. The strength of the mind surpasses technique, it's about insight. The first challenge is to dismantle the center beam. As if answering her riddle, the blade started to change. Sasuke separated the twin hilts of the sword. The blade in his left hand flipped downward, forming a round shield the size of his head, while the right hilt glowed with a blue light, extending into a long energy blade that reached the ground. From the stands, Naruko smiled. Ni no Ryu, Taiyoda Tsuki. Second form, Sun and Moon. Sasuke examined the new form of the weapon, noticing two seals etched on the shield, chain and spike. He tapped both with his right hand. Spikes emerged from the edge of the shield, and a chain extended from its base to the handle. Sasuke smirked, pleased with the transformation. He hurled the shield forward, and Yoroi quickly leapt into the air to avoid it. However, Sasuke had regained a strong position. His weapon now gave him range and flexibility in close combat. Spinning the chain shield around him, the sound it made was like a fan cutting through the air. Sasuke then charged at Yoroi, energy blade at the ready. Yoroi struggled to react mid-air, the shield's movement catching him off guard. As he landed, he narrowly evaded Sasuke's vertical strike. But the moment he thought he was safe, the shield's chain extended and wrapped around him. Time seemed to slow. Yoroi was trapped. Both fighters hit the ground. Sasuke's eyes locked onto his opponent, Sharingan still spinning. "Surrender," he said, firm but not aggressive. Yoroi remained still, then spoke calmly. "No." Sasuke gave a small nod. If Yoroi wished to continue, then so be it. He activated the next phase of his strategy. Sakura, watching from the stands, recognized the technique. That's the jutsu he used during the second test. Naruko, curious, raised an eyebrow as Sasuke ended the sequence with a hand seal. Fire release, dragon flame technique. A stream of controlled fire flowed along the chain, enveloping the shield and glowing with a dazzling light. Yoroi cried out in discomfort from the intense heat, and Kakashi quickly stepped in with a water-style technique to douse the flames before anyone was harmed. Yoroi fainted from exhaustion. From the stands, Gaara's eyes widened. The sudden intensity unsettled him. He held his head as a familiar inner voice tried to shake his composure, but he kept himself grounded. On the arena floor, Proctor Hayate stepped in, checked Yoroi's condition, and raised his hand. Winner of the fifth match, Uchiha Sasuke. As Sasuke walked back toward the bleachers, he was met by Naruko, clearly concerned. Her eyes, usually full of cheer, were serious. She had not expected such recklessness. I didn't share Guren Zanpaku with you for that kind of display, Sasuke. The Uchiha gave a slight shrug. But I didn't go too far, he replied. Naruko shook her head, her expression unchanging. He was lucky. That fire technique could have overwhelmed him. She stepped closer. If you ever ignore the ideals of Konoha again, I'll stop you myself. Sasuke took a step back, surprised by Naruko's resolve. Even Ino, standing nearby, was caught off guard by the intensity between the two. Just then, the tournament screen shuffled through the remaining names. Most of the fighters watched with nervous anticipation, except Gaara and Neji, who remained calm and focused. The next match appeared on the screen. Abumi Zaku vs Aburame Shino. Shino descended into the arena, hands still in his pockets, calm as always. Zaku, with his right arm in a sling, looked across at him with determination. Hayate raised his hand and announced. Fifth match of the preliminaries, Abumi Zaku vs Aburame Shino. Begin. Stepping back, Hayate gave the fighters space. Shino adjusted his sunglasses with a measured movement. Are you really choosing to fight in that condition? He asked neutrally. I admire your resolve, but understand this, I currently hold the advantage. Look behind you. Zaku turned his head and gasped. The ground behind him was covered in a massive swarm of insects slowly creeping forward. In battle, Shino continued, it's wise to have an ace up your sleeve. He pointed at Zaku as bugs began to emerge from his sleeves and neckline. Choose, face them, or face me. Zaku stood frozen, unsure of his next move. Shino was never one to waste time. For him, efficiency was a top priority, and logic was his constant guide in combat. Unlike Shikamaru, Shino may not have been the most brilliant strategist, but he made up for it through consistent effort, though he rarely showed it outwardly. Unlike Naruko, Shino preferred to stick to the basics. To him, fundamentals were the foundation of everything, forming a clear structure to navigate any situation. His methodical thinking helped Team 8 endure even the most challenging parts of their mission in the Forest of Trials. Up in the bleachers, the blonde Kunoichi of Team 7 watched with mild interest and commented, Shino's definitely got this. Kiba smirked and replied, you know your stuff, Blondie. Naruko rolled her eyes. Come on, it's obvious. Shino doesn't slack off like Shikamaru over there. She casually flicked something off her finger toward the laid-back boy with the pineapple-shaped hair. Shino takes initiative. Most of the time, his opponents don't even realize they're already caught in his strategy. Kurenai looked proud. As a teacher, seeing her student embody the traits of a strong ninja, logical, decisive, and swift, was rewarding. Shino wasn't as theoretical as Naruko, who had become a specialist in sealing techniques, nor as purely strategic as Shikamaru. Instead, he balanced different skills, making him a well-rounded shinobi. You really think I'm helpless just because one of my arms is hurt? Zaku shouted. He strained to lift his injured arm, pointing his good one toward the swarm of insects, while forcing his damaged arm to mimic the motion. The strain was intense. Even holding that position with an injured limb was exhausting, but Zaku endured. The hardships he'd faced before had toughened him, and he refused to back down. Zaku grinned defiantly at Shino, who stood calmly, hands in his pockets. You said every fighter should have a trick up their sleeve, right? Shino remained silent, unmoved. Zaku turned his focus back to his opponent. Well, I've got a better card to play, he shouted, focusing chakra into his hands. Zankua. Air-slicing wave. He expected a powerful burst of wind to erupt from his palms, aiming to push back Shino and his insects. Instead, a wave of sharp pain surged through his arms. Chakra poured uncontrollably from small openings across his forearms like steam escaping a kettle, and he cried out. Before Zaku could react, Shino closed the distance in a flash and landed a direct punch to his cheek, sending him stumbling backward toward the waiting swarm. Zaku looked up in shock. What? How? Shino answered in his calm, even tone. Before you even finished moving that injured arm, I sent insects into the chakra points on your arms. They blocked the flow, preventing your technique. You were so focused on fighting through the pain, you didn't notice. Then Shino turned away, his words clear and final. I had the better strategy. With that, the insects drained the last of Zaku's chakra, leaving him unable to continue. Winner of the sixth match, Aburame Shino. There was little else to say. Shino calmly walked off as the next names started appearing on the screen. Naruko observed everything closely, her hands gripping the railing. Her eyes narrowed at a sound ninja standing off to the side, a man who had been smirking since Sasuke's match. The expression reminded Naruko of a sinister grin she had seen before, an unsettling and eerie smile that once belonged to the snake Sannin. She hadn't forgotten that look. It sent a chill through her, and she instinctively knew something was wrong. She clenched her fists but refrained from acting impulsively. This was something she needed to report directly to the Hokage. For someone to infiltrate the preliminary exams, especially with such secrecy, pointed to something serious. Possibly even sabotage from within the village. Naruko's mind raced. If someone from the inside was leaking information about the village's defenses, it could lead to an invasion. This was no small matter. Her thoughts were interrupted by the announcement of the next match. Inuzuka Kiba vs Sabaku no Kankuro. Kiba nodded with determination as he leapt down to the arena floor. Across from him, Kankuro descended the steps, carrying something large on his back and smiling confidently. "Hey, finally, a decent challenge," Kankuro commented. Kiba flashed a playful grin. "Better be ready, makeup guy. I hope that puppet of yours comes with a return policy." Unbothered, Kankuro unwrapped the bundle from his back and placed a hand on it. "Careful what you say. Karasu's not exactly gentle." "Good. Neither am I." Kiba formed a hand seal. "Let's make this interesting." Kankuro smirked again and activated his chakra threads. "Ninja art, puppetry technique." Kiba added with a teasing smirk, "Let's see if your strings can keep up." Kankuru's expression shifted into a scowl. With Hayate's signal, the match began. Kiba and Akamaru burst into action, zigzagging toward Kankuro with incredible speed. The puppet Karasu moved to intercept, spinning with bladed limbs, but Kiba and his partner dodged skillfully. Kankuro tried to keep up, jumping back and shielding with Karasu, but the duo was too fast. Kiba jumped, spinning mid-air. Piercing fang. Kankuro narrowly avoided the attack by using Karasu as a platform to leap away. But Akamaru was already above him and landed a slash from behind. Kiba landed on the ceiling, watching the scene below. That wasn't the real one. He muttered, noticing Kankuru's body dissolving into sand. His nose twitched. "Akamaru, let's find him." Akamaru sniffed the air, picked up the trail, and dashed off toward a large statue. He spun mid-air and launched toward it with precision. Kankuro, hiding behind it, was nearly hit. Kiba followed with perfect timing, launching his own spin attack. Double piercing fang. With an eruption of dust and stone, the attack landed. As the smoke cleared, Kiba and Akamaru stood victorious, while Kankuro lay unconscious. Naruko observed carefully. Kiba used his tracking ability smartly. He picked up Kankuru's scent, separated it from the puppet, and used Akamaru to pinpoint the real one. That was a solid team strategy. Winner of the match, Inuzuka Kiba. Kiba cheered and celebrated with Akamaru, but as he walked back, he suddenly stumbled. "Kiba!" Kurenai called out and rushed to his side, noticing a small cut on his shoulder. "Poison," Naruko said. "Likely a mild nerve agent. Probably happened during that close call with Karasu. Puppeteers love using hidden tricks like that." She'd studied their tactics well, they relied on surprise and compartmentalized weapons. But once those secrets were revealed, puppets became much easier to counter. Medical staff quickly arrived and began tending to Kiba, carrying him off for further care. As the next fighters were being selected, the screen flashed with names, an unexpected matchup that made several jounin exchange concerned glances. The tension in the room rose once more. Hyuga Neji vs Hyuga Hinata. Kurenai watched her student with concern. She gently placed a hand on Hinata's shoulder and said, "It's all right. You don't have to go through with this if you're not ready." Hinata looked up at her sensei, then glanced over at Naruko, who stood quietly but firmly, her gaze fixed on Neji. There was something fierce in Naruko's expression, not anger exactly, but a deep, unwavering determination. Hinata inhaled deeply. "No. I mustn't be afraid. I promised myself I would change. I need to be stronger. For myself. And for her." Stepping onto the arena floor, Hinata approached her cousin. Her footsteps were hesitant, but her eyes revealed a glimmer of courage. "I suggest you surrender now, Hinata-sama," Neji said coolly. His tone was flat, his pale eyes showing no warmth. "This is decided. You won't be able to compete, much less win." From the stands, Naruko's hands clenched the railing. Hearing Neji's words stung. Naruko couldn't stand seeing someone talk down to Hinata like that, especially not someone from her own family. Hinata trembled. Old habits returned as she nervously fidgeted. The way you hold your hand to your mouth. It reveals your uncertainty. Your breathing is uneven, you're afraid. You want to step back, Neji said. Then, he added coldly, Hinata-sama. You were never meant for this. You are a disappointment. The words echoed in her mind like a whisper from the past. Her confidence wavered, and in that instant, the image of her father's stern expression rose before her eyes. No. Not again. I don't want to be like that again. Neji stepped closer, his words sharp and unforgiving. You bring shame to the Hyuga name. Surrender now. There's no point in continuing. Don't you dare. Naruko muttered from the stands, her voice low. Her voice grew louder, filled with fierce resolve. Don't talk to Hinata like that. She's stronger than you think. Neji glanced briefly at Naruko, then turned his attention back to Hinata. Hinata. You can do this. Show him he's wrong, show everyone the strength you've worked so hard to build, Naruko shouted, her voice full of encouragement. Hinata's eyes widened. That support, that belief, it filled the space inside her heart that had been filled with doubt. She raised her head and looked directly at Neji. No. I won't back down. Not this time. Neji raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her sudden resolve. Then let's begin. Hinata formed the familiar hand seals and activated her Byakugan. The veins near her eyes became pronounced, her gaze focused and clear. Byakugan. She called out. Neji followed suit, the same transformation occurring. Both assumed the graceful and precise gentle fist stance. Match 8, Hyuga Neji vs Hyuga Hinata. Begin. The proctor announced. With speed and precision, both Hyuga heirs rushed toward one another. Their palms clashed, creating a ripple of energy that caused a slight shockwave. Chakra was controlled, redirected, and blocked in elegant bursts as they moved like dancers in a choreographed battle. Neji thrust a palm toward Hinata's cheek, she ducked and countered with an upward strike. He narrowly avoided it and responded with a quick palm strike toward her chest. Hinata shifted her weight and deflected, returning a straight strike toward his abdomen. Neji sidestepped, but she followed up with a sweep of her leg to reposition herself. The audience watched in awe. It was like a delicate and complex performance, fluid, fast, and filled with refined precision. Each move was strategic. Each block or parry was decisive. Neji's hand struck Hinata's forearm. She winced as the chakra struck a pressure point. Despite the pain, she stood firm. That move. He hit one of her chakra points, Kakashi murmured from the stands. Tenketsu points, Naruko added quietly. There are 361 of them in the body, points where chakra flows. If you hit one just right, it can stop the flow entirely. Hinata clutched her arm but remained standing. Her breath was shallow, but her voice steady. I'm not giving up. This is my path. My way. Neji frowned, clearly frustrated. Stop fighting, Hinata-sama. There's no need to struggle anymore, he said. Hinata looked at him, and her voice softened. You're hurting too. I can see it in your eyes. You carry so much pain inside. My eyes, they don't lie. Neji's expression faltered for the first time. But his pride pushed forward. He prepared to rush forward again, determination in his stride. However, before he could move, a powerful force stopped him. In a blur of motion, Naruko appeared in front of him, shielding Hinata. Her coat fluttered behind her, her expression calm but intense. Her eyes, dark and focused, conveyed a sense of protective strength. She didn't speak with rage, but with unwavering resolve. That's enough, she said firmly. Kakashi appeared beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. It's all right, Naruko. You've made your point. Naruko looked at Hinata, who was standing again, bruised, breathing heavily, but still holding herself with pride. She's not weak, Naruko said softly. She never was. Neji silently turned and walked away, the match complete. Though Hinata hadn't officially won the match, she had earned something far greater, the respect of those who had doubted her, and the realization that strength comes in many forms. And as she looked at Naruko, Hinata smiled. Not because she was saved, but because someone had believed in her, and she had finally started to believe in herself. Naruko struck the wall behind Neji with all her strength, causing the solid concrete to crack and crumble from the impact. She glanced at Neji, her determination unwavering as she heard the medics escorting the Hyuga heiress away, ensuring she received the care she needed. Naruko then pointed at Neji and, her voice calm but firm in her serious form, said, "When we meet in the finals, I won't hold back like you did with Hinata. I will show you the true strength I possess." No one deserves to be underestimated. For the first time, Neji sensed a wave of unease coming from her, visible in the tense sweat on his brow. With that, Neji cautiously headed upstairs, feeling a new kind of apprehension settle within him. Guy watched the small blonde girl move away and climb the stairs, her appearance shifting back to the familiar orange outfit. Neji has awakened a force to be reckoned with. May Kami-sama guide us all. Dear YouTube viewers, that wraps up this fanfic series. Thank you all for joining me on this journey. But don't go too far, there's plenty more coming your way. Much love. 6 Path Weeb.